Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Mr. Sean Cunningham from ABC 10. No? Yes?
Got
yes!
it. Nailed it.
Yes.
You're so good.
Why I struggle with that is beyond me.
Every time I go, like it goes down, I'm like, yep, boom, got it. Yep.
Is he going to say it right? Is he not? Yeah. There's a lot of things I jam into my head, and that's one of those things that for some reason doesn't stick. I'm an elephant. I can remember everything from about 5 years ago on, all the way down to like when I was a small child, which startles people sometimes. But you get me anything that happened today, and I'm pretty much in trouble. Yeah, like where are my keys? Where's my wallet? That's why
I can relate.
I become a nutty professor in my old age. Like the short-term memory is shot. All right, so let's just start out with the basics. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. And
Can you do it twice? Is it possible to do twice? I'm not sure.
I don't know either. Just keep hitting it.
Mash it.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, so that's number one. Number two, if you're on the YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe. Our push is to get to 1,000. We're almost to 500. We're almost halfway there, which is awesome.
Living on a prayer?
Yeah, there it is.
There it is.
And then make sure to jump on the Kings Beat. We're working on the next happy hour. We'll probably announce in maybe Saturday when I do the weekend review. We'll announce when the next happy hour will be, but it is going to be after February 10th, just because there's no way for us to do this. The Kings have not made a trade, which means they still could make a trade, and I don't want to get in the middle of a happy hour and have things go south on us like super quick. We're working on a guest for that. We'll know that soon, and it should be some good stuff. So jump on the Kings Beat, subscribe. You can find it in the description on the YouTube channel as well. And then if you choose to do so, jump on and do a premium subscription to the Kings Beat, which gets you an invite to the happy hour. Sean, we got some ground to cover here.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like, it doesn't matter that we do a pod twice a week. There's still so much content, and it doesn't matter that the Kings are absolutely atrocious most nights. There's still a ton of content to work through. First and foremost, let's just chat about the Kings win over the Brooklyn Nets on on Wednesday night. Unexpected.
How'd that
stunning.
happen?
How did that happen, Sean?
I mean, James Harden just 4 points. Like what?
Against the Sacramento Kings?
I mean, and it probably didn't dawn on either of us until like halftime, right? Like at one point I was like, is he just not going to take shots? And he was like, I think 1 of 11 or 2 of 11 at one point. And he tried to become a factor later on, and I think Brooklyn just thought that they were going to be able to do what a lot of teams come in and do, and 5 minutes to go, okay, here's where we just step on their throats and finish him, like in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Finish it!
the fatality.
Rip out the spine of the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, the beating heart is just right there. And it just didn't happen that way. And it didn't happen that way because I think this team collectively, at least a few handful of guys who look at the opportunity ahead of them, trying to make the most of it, had a starting lineup change. They went a little bit bigger. They finally just had enough, I mean, there was some heart on display in that game. And, there wasn't a lot of people in the building, but the building was really good. Like, that was a really good crowd. And I think that they responded the right way to what was the product that was, and some of the performances that were on the court. And they were definitely an appreciation there. And it was much needed. It really was, especially in just such a dark and dreary time when you'd lost like 12 of 14, 7 in a row. And now you win that game, and now you're in a moment. I tweeted this last night because I just went, this is so Kings, or even possibly Kings, when you can go lose to Houston, follow that up by losing to Detroit, lose 5 straight, come back, beat Brooklyn, who, by the way, is reeling. I mean, that's their 6th straight loss. But you lose to Brooklyn, or you beat Brooklyn, and then here you are playing the Warriors on a Wednesday or a Thursday night. And what if you beat them? I mean, that'd just be so Kings, wouldn't it?
It would be so Kings. So, like, for me, it was like one night only. For one night only, we're going to come out here and punch somebody in the face. And I liked what I saw. To be honest with you, they were scrappy. And that's all we ask, right? Like, if you're not going to be good, at least be scrappy. At least make it close. At least fight. And Alvin Gentry, I think, coached his ass off in that game.
Yeah.
Like, he couldn't. So I think if you're just watching from the outside and you're like, man, why does Nick Claxton have 23 points and 11 rebounds and 5 blocks?
That was hard to watch.
Your first thought is like, oh my gosh, Richaun Holmes is playing so bad. And the fact is, like, did Richaun Holmes play great? No. But the design was very specific. It was to have Holmes shock, run at
They had him on
guys.
the perimeter.
Yeah.
They had him out on the perimeter. Yeah.
Go at Kyrie and go at James Harden and stop those guys. And if that guy beats us, that guy beats us. Now, I will
beat
say
you.
this.
He did beat you for that first
But he didn't.
half.
But he didn't.
Right.
Because you still won. And so I'll say this. Like, while that's what their game plan was, the Kings' game plan, we clearly saw what the Nets' game plan was. And that was to stop Tyrese Haliburton and slow down Harrison Barnes. And if Davion Mitchell can beat us, that's fine. But realistically, the two guys they tried to have, like, they gave the opportunity to beat them was Mo Harkless in the corner and Chimezie Metu in the corner. They just kept leaving him wide open. And that was by design. We talked about this before. Like, hey, by design, teams are having these guys shoot. And you got to be better than that. And so I think both Mo Harkless and Chimezie Metu both came up big in situations. I think Harkless finished with 10 points, but his defense was nuts. And not only his defense, Sean, but he was like the orchestrator of the defense. He was yelling and screaming at everyone. Yeah.
He was the IQ. Him and Tyrese were the IQ of the team. And I think you could sprinkle Davion in there to a degree as well. And James, you mentioned some. I mean, you talk about Richaun and just some of the things that they were doing. Once Alvin made the adjustment, I mean, Richaun was only like 21 minutes, which meant Mo Harkless, who hadn't played in a long time, at least in bulk minutes, Damian Jones, and Chimezie Metu, without the services of Marvin Bagley, all three of those guys played more than Richaun Holmes, your starting center. I didn't
Sean,
think I'd see that, and especially in a close game.
The reason why I think we saw it, though, because I do think Holmes would have come back in and played minutes late, but I think Gentry ran with what was working. He ran with because even like Harrison Barnes didn't come back in, and Harrison Barnes was really good. I mean, he was really. I think he finished with 19, 6 rebounds, like 4 assists. Like, he was playing well, but you got to a point where it's like, hey, this is working. And I'll point this out. Like, Chimezie Metu had 11 points. I think it was 11 points and 12 rebounds. He got so many rebounds in the fourth quarter. You're just like, hey, look at that. We had Damian Jones and Chimezie Metu fighting over rebounds. Like, when was the last time you saw two Kings fighting over a rebound? I've seen two Kings fighting not to get a rebound, but fighting to get a rebound. I don't think I've seen it. And then, the other thing, Sean, I'm going to point out, because I tweeted out the Kings are getting a standing ovation. And like, I was surprised. Number one, that tweet went like last time I checked, it was well over like 200 likes. But I have people who are spouting off like, oh, you mean like all 12 people? And you know what, Sean? This is like, I hate to be this blunt, but F you. F you. If you're going to be an asshole and respond to something like that, you know why there was 8,000 people or 9,000 people in the stands? Because you didn't go buy a ticket and go to the damn game. So F you, Mr. Negativity. The people who sat there and watched that game stood up and cheered for their team because that's what fans do. Your team fought. They had a good game. So F you, bad take, Kings fan in my timeline. Like, I'm just sitting there like,
You should just shout out his handle, his or her
Man,
handle.
how rude are you? Oh, well, I could go down. There's a list of them, and I'm like,
But that just shows that, again, there's this big disconnect, and I think people give, and I don't mean to slam you here, James, but it's like I think people give the voice of Twitter. Sometimes I like to call the friend of the friendless. You amplify it too much. Meaning somebody who says something like, what are the comments in a Facebook, all that stuff? Like, it's just a negative spot. Like, it's just where vile trash just thrives. So I think you even mentioned the other day, I think, well, no, it was last night. I don't know if it was you. I don't want to throw you under the bus. It was somebody on press row took notice that the fans cheered Buddy Hield. And
oh no, that was
like,
me.
That was
okay.
They're like, wow, they're cheering Buddy Hield. And I'm like, well, yeah, if you only listen to Twitter, or if you only listen to Twitter, you would have a different reality than what actually exists. And I think, that was on display when Marvin Bagley took the floor after what happened to start the season and all that stuff. Like, the people in the building who spend the money, who are exactly the type of consumer that they go after, or they should, they're trying to curtail the game experience and all that stuff. Like, these people are the ones that are investing their hard-earned dollars and their time. Like, it's one thing to invest your time, but to invest your money as well, that's something. I mean, it's not cheap, even though there is some competitive ticket pricing right now, which is pretty nice. I mean, they have to do it. But, yeah, I mean, good for them. it was funny. I have a cousin of mine. He's not really a sports. He's a pretty diehard 49er fan. And he had upper deck tickets to the game, and he took, his wife and his daughter, and I think they got together with another couple or another family that they are in. They were at the game, and this guy hadn't been to a Kings game since really, I think, that maybe the first year the building opened in Golden One Center. So, it just shows you that there's Twitter and the narratives and some of the things, like, it doesn't affect. It's just, it makes up such a tiny amount of things of the reality of the situation, and sometimes people just echo those voices too much. And I hear it, James. Like, I see it too. Like, it's cynicism. There's so much that stuff that exists, and I see it every single night. And I just, for me, I don't know. Maybe I just don't have, like, I get amused by it. I really do. Like, I find a level of entertainment out of the cynicism and the stuff that I can see people take the time out of their day to comment to. And everyone has a breaking point, and that one got you.
That one, it just it just stuck out because it's like we've had this conversation on here, right? Like, I've said, like, look, if you're a season ticket holder and you can't sell your tickets and you're not going to go to a game, whether you don't want to go to a game or whether you can't go to a game, like, just walk outside your front door. Walk down to a neighbor's house with kids. Knock on their door and say, hey, I got 2 tickets to the game tonight. Would you like to go? I'm not going. Free. Just give them away. Like, let someone else go, because it is, like, for all of the bad basketball, Golden One is still a magical building. And if you're going to get young people to get out and to see something and to get to experience something that maybe their family can't afford or they don't get to do, like, just open your eyes a little bit and try to be better. I think that's what it was for me. It's like, man, like, I get you digging on how bad the Kings are, but don't dig on the people who actually showed up when you didn't. That's just rude. It's just rude.
And honestly, like, I get it, but at the same time, like, to me, it's some people want to send the message that they're fed up. Some people would rather see an empty seat there that they paid for, and just to send the message. And I'm fine with that. Like, do what you do. But I'm more of what you said, James, because you can open up somebody's eyes. You can make a difference. You can take that pressure off of their everyday lives, even if bad basketball, whatever. But Kyrie Irving and James Harden were in the building last night, and it wasn't a good James Harden. It wasn't even a particularly good Kyrie Irving, but Kyrie Irving's only played. He's still a champion and a 7-time All-Star and one of the best ball handlers you'll ever see in your life. And that's I was excited to see him. We hadn't seen him. He's only played 13 games the entire season because of this whole unvaccinated stuff that he's got to deal with in New York. And it's just stuff like that where just go be entertained, go have fun. It's a night out.
I agree. And you know what? I'm gonna take a second here. Will of the People. Follow him on Twitter. Will of the THA people. He's one of the Sacktown royalty guys. Well, what used to be Sacktown royalty. He's one of the King's Herald guys. And he has started a thing that every single time the Kings lose, he chooses a place to donate to, and he donates $10. And it's caught on. So all of a sudden, every time the Kings lose, like some anonymous nonprofit in Sacramento is getting flooded with $10 donations from random Kings fans who have had enough. And to me, those are ways that you can make an impact. You can be positive and, in a bad situation. Like, look, we're in a bad situation. Like, we're not telling you, we're being honest with you every step of the way here. Like, we're not telling you that everything is fine, that, move along, nothing to see here.
Right.
Like, this is a full-fledged shit show. Excuse my language. And
let it fly.
It is what it is, right? We're seeing a team that's now, they won a game and they improved to 15 games under 500. And Sean, we've got to a point where the season is winding down. Like this thing is sneaking up. Like we're already, what did I do the math? I think there's 29 games left in the season, and they're between now and the All-Star. In the trade deadline, there's 4 games. At the trade deadline, there's only going to be 25 games after the trade deadline, and then All-Star Week hits right after that, and there's only going to be like 22 games or 23 games after the All-Star break. This is really strange, the way this whole thing is laid out. But I think what that brings us to is, like, the Kings are a mess, but they're not just a mess on the court. They have this other situation that's happening, and we're going to run some clips here in just a minute on De'Aaron Fox, but Sean, you and I it was you and me and Jason Anderson from Sacramento Bee. We went to shoot around on Wednesday and were graced with the presence of De'Aaron Fox, which, again, it's kind of a weird situation. The last time the Kings played in Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox was on the court. Then they fly to Milwaukee, and he starts his 5-game hiatus where he's not playing and he's got an ankle injury. So let's start with the long clip of him sort of breaking down the ankle injury. And again, remember, like, this is Sean and I and Jason just kind of like rapid firing De'Aaron at the practice facility. So you're gonna hear like balls bouncing in the background and all that stuff. But let's roll the clip. Hopefully I got the right clip because we got a couple of them today.
So I guess just how's the ankle feel?
It's getting better. I want to come back as close to 100% as I can.
How much does it surprise you it's been this long since you've been on the court?
I've twisted my ankle like a lot of times. That's the reason I wear the ankle braces, and I've usually been fine. It'll hurt for a little bit, but in Milwaukee it just felt different. I tried to do a move, it hurt, so I was out, and it's kind of been lingering the same thing over and over. So for me, it's just trying to be able to come to a stop without feeling pain.
When are you? Do you think you'll be back tonight? How soon do you think you'll be back?
I don't have an answer to that. Whenever it's not hurting to where every cut I make hurts. So I don't know.
Is that mostly lateral movement?
Yeah, it's all lateral. That's what it is. Like jumping, running straight, like I'm fine. It's the cutting that got me.
Did it happen at a practice, or how did that happen?
No, the Detroit game.
Okay.
But I've done it a lot of times in games, so it's, I'll say something, whatever. I'm fine. Keep playing. I finished the game, so I didn't think it would happen like that.
Have you had MRIs? Have you had the X-rays, all that
I've
stuff?
had MRI, yes.
And everything's all right?
I'm not a doctor. I don't know all the terms. I don't know all the terms.
Is it high?
No, it's low.
It's low. Okay. Is there any part of you that, because of the time that it's been, where you almost want to check with a specialist, anything like that?
I don't think it's that far.
Yeah.
The MRI, you said you're not a doctor, but they told you there's nothing structural or anything there.
How about just, you've had a pretty front row seat to some of this past 5 games. It looks like it's kind of troubling, and maybe to you guys it might feel like it's just kind of par for the course of where you guys have been this season, but did it feel like this one carried a little more weight to it?
I've been on a losing streak before, so I I think, I don't know if I'll say it carries more weight. No.
And we're
All
back.
right, Sean. And we're back. Yeah, actually, I hadn't listened to it like that before. My mic did pick up a lot of background noise, which, it happens. I mean, I use my phone with a Rode mic. So he's had an MRI.
We put the hot lights on him. It was almost like it was an interrogation.
I felt like that too. It was rapid fire. It was like, that was 2 minutes and I think 14 seconds of like, like.
And here's the thing: like, people might not get this. Like, I do this. I tell people about this when I interview high school athletes, because high school athletes are very nervous. They're not used to the attention. They're not used to spotlight, being interviewed, that kind of thing. And sometimes you'll go talk to like a high school football player, and you're asking him questions, and he gives you he answers a question with yes or no, or doesn't really elaborate too much. So what I try to do is let him know that, hey, I can be here all day. I can ask questions. Like, I can come up with anything. We're not going anywhere. So it's our duty to be able to find out information, and it's also tough when in your mind when you're trying to have to. All right, we have somebody who's. I thought De'Aaron was pretty cooperative, to be honest with you. I thought he was pretty cooperative. He just clearly didn't really want to talk about it because it is a little bit of a mystery to him. And we eventually get to a point, and I know we have another clip coming up, but that's why we had to pepper, because you have somebody who is kind of being a little
evasive.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and like, I don't think he didn't try to mislead us. The I'm not a doctor thing was like, come on, bro. Like, I'm not either, but I play one on Twitter all the time. Like, so just stop. Like, just tell us what the deal is.
Well, you're not a doctor, but you do know that if your MRI comes back clear or negative, or there's nothing there, then you should say that.
Yes.
Exactly. Like those aren't medical terms. Those are. There
No.
anything in your MRI that was a concern? And that's why I brought up the specialist, because that's next. I mean, that is what's next. I mean, this is all residual from his grade 3 ankle sprain.
Yes.
Which was 2 years ago, last year?
2000. I looked it up, November 2019. And we're talking about a grade 3 ankle sprain that he came back from in 7 weeks, as opposed to the 12 to 16 weeks that most players take. I know even Lonzo Ball had a very similar injury, like right around the same time, or right before that. And Lonzo Ball missed over 3 months. I mean, and Fox was back. I think he missed 19 games. And he wasn't right like the whole time. We could tell he wasn't right. He didn't have the same explosion. But I kind of wonder, number one, did he come into camp with just not 100% healthy? Like, we've heard a lot about, De'Aaron Fox has been slightly disconnected, that he hasn't been the same person in the locker room, that things have been, just off. Like, he felt like he was off from the moment he got to Sacramento, or that he got into the practice facility with the team at training camp. I think we can make a lot of speculative reasons why, and there are plenty, I don't think it's just physical. I think there are plenty of psychological reasons why he didn't feel right. We've discussed some of that. I don't think he was particularly happy about the fact that the team didn't make a bunch of moves, that some of the guys that were there, that didn't want to be there, were still with the team. I think that was some issue. And I also think that after 4+ years of losing, you come in and you start losing again, and it snowballs and it gets on top of you. And, I think I even asked him at one point, did this give you a mental break? And he said, no, because I had COVID, and that gave me a mental break as well. So I wouldn't say that. But you know what, Sean? I don't buy that either, because we talked to him a couple of 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. He was worn out. He was beat down. That's not what the Fox we saw yesterday. The Fox we saw yesterday was sort of like the young, cocky dude that we've been used to seeing for the last couple of years. From the time he got into the league, he's fun, he's engaging, he's a smartass. He's witty, and like, can he be evasive? Is he giving you everything? Like, I remember that clip about, like, someone asked him about his dating things, and he's like, dude, I'm
Sorry,
19
what?
years old. About his dating, like whether he's using apps to date and stuff on his phone. This was before.
Are you swiping right?
Yeah, someone asked him, and he's like, man, I'm 19 years old. I'm a millionaire. Like, what do you think I'm doing? Like, he's always been like that guy.
Right.
And I totally feel like we lost him this season. Like, almost like at a certain point, like almost soulless coming in and just broken. And it was like, damn, Kings broke De'Aaron Fox. I saw that side of him yesterday. I saw the chippy, the like quick-witted side of him, which I think we've kind of like we've seen gone missing. And so I don't want to say that like that he's all better or that, because he's still not playing. And to be honest with you, Sean, I don't know if he's ever going to play for the Sacramento Kings again. We got like 7 days until the trade deadline.
1 week from the day we record this podcast. So yeah, 1 week from today.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the weirdness of this whole thing. Like, this could be how he kind of ushers out the door if he does get traded between now and next Thursday, and he doesn't play between now and next Thursday. That's what I mean. Like, I don't think that they're, I think all things are being considered.
Yeah. And, going back to I don't know if there's the whole, I've always kind of seen him as the same guy. I think the losing obviously carries a weight to it. But also, like, I think he knows he hasn't played in the last five games prior to when we were talking to him, and they hadn't won anything. And I think part of the worn out stuff was, I think he knows that he has to play at a certain level for this team to sustain success, and he may not be completely comfortable with that. Also, I do think the ankles have been bothering him, but it's not, obviously he mentioned it's lateral movement. The lateral movement is your athleticism. People think running and jumping is the athleticism. It is, but your lateral movement is the way to tell an athlete and how they move laterally. Like, that's your athleticism in basketball. I have so many people who've told me that over the years, and it's really true. Like, it's if you can't move laterally and you can't stop and cut and have that type of movement, and he's talked about it, he doesn't have the free motion in his ankle that he once did since suffering that grade 3 sprain. That's a problem. Like, no athlete is ever going to reach 100% again. It's always a gradual decline as you go.
Yeah.
And De'Aaron Fox might need an ankle surgery. That's just the reality of it, and maybe that happens this offseason. Maybe it doesn't, who knows. But a specialist will be in the future. Probably has been in the offseason. I think there's cause for concern, but can he play? Like he talked about, I can run and I can jump. It's the stopping, it's the cutting, it's the lateral motion. That's the stuff. And again, it's simply pain tolerance. And I know we get into that in the next clip, but if your MRI is coming back, everyone's literally looking at you like, well, what are you willing to do? Like, he talked about how he's been able to finish games. The one question we weren't able to ask, mainly because we didn't have a whole lot of time with the guy.
Yeah.
I thought he answered a lot of questions. You could kind of tell he was done with it. But if I had another one, I'd ask, where's the pain level now, days later? I mean, we're talking 2 weeks later, really. Where's the pain level to where it was in the Detroit game when it happened and you were able to continue to play through? Like where's the barometer there? Because clearly the pain is preventing you from playing. And obviously, in your mind, you don't want to suffer that pain. You may not want to make things worse. You may not want to turn it again. I get all that. But where's that pain level compared to when it happened, to where you felt like you were able to push through? And I don't think it helped that Alvin Gentry said when it happened, if it was a playoff game, he probably could play. Because I think Alvin thought he'd have him back in the next game or two, because all the staff is saying, well, there's nothing wrong. You have a clear MRI, all this stuff, but it's just literally pain tolerance. So Now that you're 2 weeks after having that moment, now there's clearly a problem there, and hopefully he's closer to being able to gut through it as opposed to being to the point where he just can't give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, he said a couple of things. Number one, he said that he is getting better. Number two, he said he's not going to play until he's as close to 100% as possible. Like I don't expect him to play on Thursday night against the Warriors. I don't. Like just the way that we talked to him yesterday. Like it's a really weird thing where the Kings just have to keep putting him as questionable, and then hope that something changes, and then he decides to play. And look, I think we all know that De'Aaron Fox relies so much on his lateral quickness. It's there are some guys who are literally they're called inline drivers, right? Guys who go right at the basket. That's not Fox. Fox likes to move laterally, and if he can't move laterally, that's a problem. And so I think that that's where we're at now. Could he play? I'm going to say yes. He probably could play, but you're 15 games under 500, and over the 5 games that they lost while he was out, or the 4 games they lost while he was out, and then the 2 games before he went out, like that was kind of your season. Like if you take even like 3 of those wins and move them to the other side, like that's a huge difference in your record. And I just don't think that this team, I think he understands where this team is, and this team is not good. And he knows that, and he knows that part of it is because he wasn't good early in the season. And now it's like, look, we're not good, and there are other guys that are gonna need time and stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm not sure that this isn't how you would think that most franchise players would like act in the middle of a season. And I think that's the biggest concern. So, Sean, adding to that is this entire narrative on the outside of like, are you going to be traded? Are you not? Or is this part of a grand scheme to confuse people, and to shut you down because a big trade is happening? Like, look, I'm not going to say that De'Aaron Fox is not going to be traded. Like, there is still potential that De'Aaron Fox, even though, like, I've put it out there that my sources say that the team hopes to build around De'Aaron Fox. That does not mean that he will not be traded. We'll just keep telling you that, and if he makes it through February 10th and he's still a Sacramento King, that does not mean that he won't be traded on draft night. It does not, like this offseason or anything else. I mean, you have to keep your mind open about what could happen here because the Kings are a bad team. So saying that, let's get to the second clip where he's kind of asked about some of this stuff.
Trade talks. I think in the Chris Haynes interview, you said that you just wanted to know if that was going to happen. Did the team let you know that that your name might be out there a little bit?
Did they say that?
Huh?
Did they say that?
I'm sorry.
Did they say that?
The team?
Yeah.
I think it's been mixed signals a little bit.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Do you feel like you've gotten mixed signals?
I mean, they've told me what they needed to tell me.
Sean.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, look, I think it's very much what you just said just a minute ago, James, which is the hope that we want to still build around you. But there's very much a possibility you could be traded. To the point where the conspiracy theory that there's probably already a deal and that team probably doesn't want to see him play. Look,
that's
happened.
The next clip, Sean.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
I mean, it's happened, but like I'd honestly, James, feel like that they are being truthful. Like there's a possibility you get traded, but I don't think this is the reason why you're not playing, because you're really coming out. And again, everything we've heard from within the organization, from people around him, they all say the same thing. It's literally a pain tolerance. And I feel like if there was any chatter regarding, hey, we're not going to play you because we have a deal in place and we're telling you about this, you would hear something different than that. Like, you don't want your guy looking like a wuss, for lack of a better term, not being able to handle pain if, oh, by the way, you're moving him and there's a deal in place. And again, if you're the player, it's like the organization is saying it's pain tolerance, and
yep.
They're putting you in a position to talk about your own MRI, which is clean. So, like, I get it. Like, he needed to answer for himself. I think he did that. And if there was a trade scenario out there, I don't feel like he's going to be put in a position to have to go out to the media and lie to them in their face, especially regarding something like this.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, just so people know, If that were the case, the Kings would not have given us De'Aaron Fox to talk to. If they already had something worked out and were telling him just sit still, we'll get back to you. No, they wouldn't have had him come out and talk to us.
No.
Like, now that doesn't mean that it can't happen still. And I'll also tell you, like, the mixed signals, like, his question was, well, what are they telling you? And I don't think that, I think he became the interviewer at that point, and like, look, what are you hearing? That's fine. Like, if what are the mixed signals? And I don't think that there are mixed signals as much as, like, are there mixed signals on the outside? Are there people on the outside that are potentially telling Jason Anderson that De'Aaron Fox could still be traded? I'm sure there are. I'm sure that there are people.
And we all have. I always say it's not a bad question. It was a little bit rocky in getting there, and I think Jason wasn't expecting the pushback from Fox.
Yeah.
But what Jason essentially did was, how are you handling trade rumors, right? Like,
yeah,
there's still things that get out there. How's the organization doing? I think that's where he was trying to go. And when Fox pushed back, I don't think he was expecting it. But at the end of the day, what Fox is trying to say is the people who matter, the people in this organization, at least, and I would even caution him, hopefully that's the case. Hopefully they're all being upfront and honest with you. But he says, if you're not hearing it from those people, then it really doesn't matter, because those are the people that ultimately are the ones in charge. And this is the message that they're telling me. And he's alluding to the fact that I know what the plan is, and unless you're telling me that there's something different, tell me.
Yeah, exactly. And like, look, I mean, there's going to be, this is trade season. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. And Sean gets information. I get information. We get it. Jason Anderson gets information. We all get it from different sources. We all get it from different places. You need to vet every single thing that you get, regardless of who it comes from. There are situations. I mean, literally, I had the DeMarcus Cousins situation where I had it confirmed by every single person involved, and 2 weeks later he was traded. Like, that's the situation where, like, until it's on the dotted line, nothing is for sure. Like, and the team can always hold out and say, well, we got a Godfather offer. And that's where, if we get to next Thursday and the Godfather offer was not a Godfather offer, but trash, and the Kings got absolutely run over, then we're going to tell you that. We're going to, that's going to be shots fired day. It's going to be like, holy cow, you just literally told us that that's the best you could do. Like, and that is a Godfather offer. Like, that's where I think this is like a weird situation for Monty McNair. Because it's like, we get it. We understand what it is that you would have to get in order to trade De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Haliburton or anyone else on the team. Mm-hmm. And then if we don't agree with what you got, just like when Vlade Divac asked all of us in the media how he did after he drafted Willie Cauley-Stein, and Sean lit him up and said, I would have drafted Moutier.
No, I didn't say that. That wasn't exactly what I said. But
what did you say, Sean?
I said, not good. I said,
not good, Bob.
I labeled off. Now, granted, you could pick apart who I said. I said, you needed a point guard for Soever. Moutier was there. You have Justice Winslow, and then and then I said, if you wanted a big, go get Miles Turner. He had the most potential.
And I think Sean was right
on that one. It was dead wrong on Moutier, though.
Moutier, yeah. Well, Moutier was here in Sacramento on that 10-day. Let's get to the final.
I thought he played pretty well, to be honest.
I did too. I don't know. I don't understand why Moutier is not in the league. I mean, I could pick like at least 2 or 3 Kings players right now that I would just waive and sign Moutier without any question. Let's get to the final clip.
Listen.
On the absence, when the mill turns and people talk about, well, is he upset, about trade talk? Are they keeping him out maybe for a trade, stuff like that? Can you dispel that, like, just out of hand? Is it just the ankle, or is there anything else?
My ankle hurts. We didn't say that, so I'm not going to dispel something that it's made up on the outside. It's not my problem.
Is it literally just a pain tolerance, or is it range of motion?
Well, since I hurt my ankle 2 years ago, I have like almost no range of motion. But it's more so just pain tolerance for sure.
There it is. That was a dual clip. So you got to hear Sean's follow-up about the pain tolerance. So, are you just soft? I think that's what Sean asked. Are you just soft?
I know. That's
Are
unfair.
are you a baby?
That is unfair, sir.
I love how Fox answered that. The first part. The second part it is. I thought he was honest about the second part as well. Like the first part though, like, look, I'm not gonna sit here and comment on some made up thing from the outside. Like,
Right.
until I'm told that I'm no longer a king, I'm a king. And as far as I know, he's been very specific with the franchise. Like, if you're going to trade me, do not let me find out on social media. Like, if that's what's going to happen, do not let me find out on Twitter. You need to tell me beforehand. Do not let Woj break the story.
Here's the thing, too, James. Like, there's a reason he said that a few weeks ago. Because I think, I'm just going to say it, like, ultimately most fans would hear this and say, oh, this player ultimately really didn't matter in the grand scheme of rebuilding, and maybe, it is a business, but it is a business. But all these players want is to be straight. Just be straight with us. Just be straight with them. Be, if you're going to trade me, trade me. If you're trying to trade, that's why I always say I would level with guys. I would let them know exactly. I'm not going to tell them like where I'm trading you. You might say, hey, please only trade me here, here, here. These are the places, desired locations. There's a reason they're called desired. You don't have to do it, but there's a way you treat guys, and agents remember this. League remembers that it is a players' association. It is a family. So the way you treat someone 1 year does have a trickle down effect to what happens when guys decide where they might want to go. And for the most part, with few really exceptions, guys are really treated well by this organization. It is true. But one that happened just this past offseason with Kyle Guy did not sit well with a lot of veterans, or a lot of guys on this team. And I heard about it. And I think De'Aaron is definitely alluding to that when he says, just be upfront with me. Because unfortunately for Kyle, he was blindsided. He had no idea, didn't hear anything. Went into free agency, and I think most people could say, well, it was trending this way. You weren't really in their cards. Bottom line was he, as he told me, never heard from them, and that's disappointing. So, but again, it's not exclusive to Sacramento. You've seen that in other situations. Some teams are just callous that way. Some teams just strictly business, do what it is. But I think this team has made big strides in the way they try to handle things, and I think that was a moment of letdown, and it did. I can just tell you, it ruffled some feathers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, no one's going to be perfect in this situation. And if you're the Sacramento Kings and you have a whole bunch of players that were going into free agency, your two-way guys are probably low on the list of priorities. They shouldn't be, because they're human beings. Like Sean and I had, I'll just say this. Sean and I had this situation yesterday. We were sitting in, there's a big white table that we sit on in the lobby of the practice facility. Rashawn Holmes walked by. Like, hey, what's up, dude? And he went outside, and, we said hello. It was very short. We didn't have a conversation.
By the way, he looked like he went outside and he just sat down like a dude sitting in the park. it wasn't like a table or anything like that, but I thought it was kind of a humorous visual to see this big, 6'10", 6'11" dude I'm just going to sit here. It's not really a chair or a table. I'm just going to sit here and take a phone call.
So Sean and I walked outside, and Rashawn Holmes is sitting outside still. And he was on the phone. He was FaceTiming. And anyway, I don't always do this. I don't typically do this, but I walked over and I said, hey, man, just so you know, sorry about all this stuff on social media that you're seeing with my name tagged in it, saying that you're available. And he's like, no, we're okay. We're okay, man. He's like, I get it. And I'm like, look, I'm not trying to start anything. It's, the information that I have, but I know, like, you're a human, and I've enjoyed having Rashawn Holmes here in Sacramento. I think he's a good guy. I said, like, look, I know, like, your mom takes it hard and all that stuff. And he goes, now I'm not going to talk about my mom. Like, I'm not going to speak for her. So clearly she's upset about it. He's like, but we're cool. We're cool. And, like, those are the moments where, like, first of all, we don't get those anymore, Sean. That's like when you write something or you go on a podcast and you say something about someone, like, part of our job is to have the accountability to walk in the locker room and have that conversation with the person afterwards, if they want to have that conversation. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're like, F that guy, or they just ignore you, or they're just fine. You go on about your day. Other times you have conflict and you need to resolve conflict because you're in their house. When you're in the locker room, you're in their house. And so anyway, that was that was a real life moment that happened yesterday. Sean's like, what'd you apologize for? And I just,
I did. I was like, why the F are you saying you're sorry? What's wrong with you?
No, because, like, look.
I didn't. I didn't hear it too. I just remember. I just heard the I'm sorry part, but it was
there's a human element to this that I think so many people miss, and there's also, like, a human element between us and them. Like, we are part of their circle, even though we're not as much part of their circle right now because of COVID stuff. But normally, we're very much part of, like, sort of the bubble. It's the whole two bubble thing where the bubbles,
Venn diagram.
Yeah, the Venn diagram. We're in the middle. Like, we
is
overlap.
That a Venn diagram? No, I can't remember.
It might be. Either way, it's you understand what we're talking about. So anyway, like, those are moments that we just don't get anymore. And sorry if Sean didn't understand why I was sorry. Sorry, I had someone aggregate something I said and it went viral and everyone now in the league thinks you're available. But you are. I mean,
well, and to be honest, I mean, there's a lot of guys. Again, I mean, he's like, oh no, I get it. Like, yeah, there's a lot of guys that would be okay with being traded, and I'm not saying Rashawn is one of them, but Rashawn is a guy that chose to sign here. Money was the first and foremost part of that, as it should be. But if the way this team is, if he's off to greener pastures, I think he'd be okay with that.
Yeah. And I think there are greener pastures that are looking at Rashawn Holmes and thinking of ways to get him. Like, I think Charlotte, I think Toronto, I think Chicago, all of those teams would be all in on getting Rashawn Holmes if the price was right. Sean, let's move forward. We're going to do a Thursday overreactions.
Oh.
Sean hates Tuesday overreactions. But to be honest with you, I think we're already starting to see the overreactions from the fans. The Kings win one game with the starting backcourt of Tyrese Haliburton and Davion Mitchell. And how many people are, like, ready to trade? Oh, trade De'Aaron. This is our backcourt of the future. We got it. We got the backcourt of the future. Yes. Sean.
James.
What the? One game, man. One game.
It's like Dark Knight where Heath Ledger as Joker says everyone loses their minds. Like, that's just what that's what happens. I mean, it's look. I mean, I know it's on the it's just on the trailing when Tyrese Haliburton had his 38-point career high the other night and losing effort. But I get it. Like, people are ready to hand over the keys. There's some people that are kind of done with Fox, maybe because what they've seen over the past few years. You haven't win, yada yada yada. I don't fault them either way, but at the same time, if someone's done with it, I made this comparison to Nick Friedel the other day, last night. I was like, it's different circumstances, but it does remind me of the fact when Vlade Divac came in. He's got an all-star center, and he keeps drafting dudes that are 6'10" or taller. Now here you have Monty McNair, who has De'Aaron Fox, not an all-star, but you're paying him like one, and you just extended him, and you got Tyrese Haliburton and Davion Mitchell to come in. Like you can almost afford to lose him because here you are with point guard play that might be more in tune with what you want that you don't have to pay a whole lot for yet, and that frees up a lot of money to pay somebody else, And now you've got this guy that you can move to get somebody great, hopefully, because he makes a lot of money. Doesn't always work that way. So it's not like, certainly he becomes a very attractive chip, but at the same time, here's this ankle problem. Here's, you don't want to just give him away pennies on the dollar. Like, how much are you going to, you have to make the right move that makes you better. And I do take them at their word. I think they're fully on board with building around these guys, at least for next year, at least for the year after that, because I think it's manageable until you have to pay Tyrese. And then that's when you have to make some decisions. That's when it probably, to me, becomes like a one or the other type move.
Yeah, and I think we're a long ways from that.
Right.
Like,
Tyrese may not ever be a max type player. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, and the salary cap is set to go up and up and up again and again. Like that's how the salary cap is currently like projecting. It's going to like 119 and then like way well above that. Like this thing is gonna a $28 million contract goes up to 30, it goes up to 32, whatever. It's not like De'Aaron Fox is paid really well, but it's not like obscene money. Where you get obscene is in the third contract. That's when it gets obscene. Yeah. And to be honest with you, like the third contract doesn't look nearly as bad as it would have, 3 months ago or 8 months ago. Like I think you were looking at that next contract. Like I think the Kings always looked at like, oh, how are we we got to make sure that we're financially flexible so we can pay Fox and Bagley. And then Bagley never developed into what you thought he would become. And so you do have this cash flow, not like you're going to have like some freedom, especially once, Harrison Barnes' contract is up and Buddy Hield's contract. Buddy Hield's contract ends the same time that Haliburton starts. So if somehow Buddy Hield is still here by then, you're losing $20 million off your books at the same time. There's always going to be ways to pay guys, and the Kings will have to figure that out down the stretch. But I think it's definitely. Like, look, I will tell you, I enjoy watching Davion Mitchell play, and he has gotten better, especially as you've added more minutes and more opportunities.
And he's looking for his shot.
He is looking for his shot, and he's also showing you that he can really play off the ball as well, that he's ready to be that secondary guy off the ball. But I still think that this team is better with all three of those guys than it is with one or two of them gone. I do. I think long term.
Well, now, right? Like, you mean in the short term right now? I feel like you can there are moves to be made to where you can get better, but.
Well, yeah, but I think if I'm looking at this team, like clearly one of the ways to get better is to trade a position of like where you have a surplus for a position of need, right?
Bigs.
Yeah, so, or point guards. You now have 3 point guards. But I also see a way in which all three of those guys fit together. I think Davion's ability to play off the ball, his ability to hit open shots, I think Fox's speed, I think Haliburton's ability to set up others. I still think that there's a easy way that all three of those guys can coexist for the next 10 years. Like, I don't think that that's, like, a huge issue. Is there going to come a point where Davion Mitchell is so good that he has to play 38 minutes a game? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that. I think that you have an ability here that you should be able to play all three of those guys plenty of minutes going forward. And I think that, the problem that you have, it's not those three. It's that, Terrence Davis is out for the season or most of the season. If not, let's just say it. He's out for the season. They're going to review him in 3 months. He's pretty much done.
He's done.
Yeah, he's done. And then, but like, if you take Buddy Hield off this team, then there's plenty of minutes. Like, if you're filling that void with something different, I think that that's what the Kings have to do. Anyway, like, I'm not going to say that backcourt stunned me so much over the last week that that's my backcourt of the future. Because I still think even if I was going to jettison De'Aaron Fox, I still want a big-time upgrade at the shooting guard position to play alongside Tyrese Haliburton. And, I think the Kings could do that. I think there are players out there that could improve this team that are more veteran, that, 26, 28 years old, that could help the team, like, balance out their age and all that stuff. And at that point, Davion is still coming off the bench. So, like, I'm not all in on the backcourt tandem of Haliburton and Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Mitchell's not there yet. You know, he's going to need seasoning. And I will say this: like sometimes a bad play, a good. I don't want to say that. Every bad team's going to have a 20-point score, right? That's the old Jerry Reynolds ism.
I think it's the old Lamont Murray.
Lamont Murray, yeah.
Yes,
every team's going to have something like that. And just because you have someone who does it the right way, like Tyrese, there are guys out there like that. Like I'm not trying to belittle Tyrese or saying, you know, dismiss what he does, because I think it's tremendous and it's sorely needed on this team. You need a lot of guys. You need more guys like that. But don't get me wrong. Anything he's done doesn't make me like think he's like this untouchable. Like clearly, if you had to identify the one or two you want to build around, he's one of them, because he's cheap, and Davion is a part of that. He's cheap, but these are why things get tricky. And because like when you're talking about assets and these draft picks before you attach a name to them and things like that, like for the right move, I'm not like, I'd move Tyrese. I absolutely would, if it's getting me something better in return. If I can get better, I would do it. And again, I'm only looking at it from a business standpoint, because again, you could argue that his value to your team will never be higher than it is right now.
Maybe
because he doesn't have that big contract, and
no,
everyone thinks of him as, oh, it's Tyrese. Like, if you, again, he slid down in the draft, right? Came to you, fell into your pocket. You're playing with house money, is what I'm kind of saying, right? So those are some of the. It's just one of the ways to look at it for some people. While we do, but that's not me. I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth. I'm with you, James, because I do think he's somebody that you could build around for sure. And this three trio could be that way. I don't know if I'd go as far as say 10 years, but I do think that there is a path there. To me, you've got three nice players, three nice pieces here, and in order to get better, you usually have to trade a good piece.
Yeah. Well, I'll take this step. I'm not trading Tyrese. I see something special in his passing ability, that I think he's one of the top passers in the league. And as a distributor, I think his ability to make plays for others is elite, and it's impactful. I think there are guys who are not impactful as passers, that put up big, gaudy assist numbers, but don't have an impact. That the assists that they dish out are almost like guys who make their living off of getting rebounds off of free throw misses. Like the Olden Polonese had a lot of rebounds on missed free throws. Like, was he a good rebounder? Yes. Was he a great rebounder? Not as great as his stats showed. Like the 1 year he led the league. So
good old Opus.
Yeah,
love Opus.
Yeah, my dude I karaoke with. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not trading Tyrese Haliburton. To me, he's more untouchable than any of the other two. And to be honest, than anyone else on the roster, he's more untouchable. All right, Sean, let's touch on this really quick. We saw it in the win over the Brooklyn. How close are we to the veterans sitting? The veterans having diminished roles. We've seen it with Alex Len, Tristan Thompson already. Mo Harkless, we could have put in that same situation, but all of a sudden he's back in it. I think the difference with Mo is he brings an intangible to the court that even though he's not a good scorer, he's not a good three-point shooter, he is a player archetype, and he's a veteran that will hold people accountable on the court in the moment, which I don't think the Kings have had that in a little while. A dude who is literally holding people accountable in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the veteran part, I think it just depends on what happens at the deadline here. I think you've got basically 4 games, and this is going to be kind of your do your business or get off the pot kind of moment, because you're only 2.5 games outside of that thing. So you still have to play with that in mind. I know people don't like hearing that. I've said for the past month, the season be damned, but I feel like you can still accomplish 2 things at once. What are you looking for, James?
Yeah.
In the rear view? You're looking at the rear view?
No, I'm looking for a book. Yeah.
You got plenty of them behind you.
Yeah. You're chasing windmills there, Sean. That's what I'm saying.
Well, no, what I'm saying is it depends on what happens here at the deadline because, sitting the veterans, I get it. Like look, you've played the veterans and you've been trash. You know what I mean?
So if they get sat, I'm going to say this right now. If they get sat, they deserve it.
No, I'm not
that is
saying
where
that they
this
don't.
season went. I'm not. I
But
know
the
you're not
veterans,
saying that. I'm just saying
James,
that.
the veterans are already not playing. Like, think about that. Like, outside of Buddy Hield, Rashawn Holmes, De'Aaron Fox, Harrison Barnes, those are your veterans, right? Every other veteran is not playing. So, like, you've got these guys. Like, I agree, you should open things up more. I thought you could have done that on the road trip a little bit, but what harm is it? Go through these 4 games, see what happens at the deadline, see what moves you make, and then react. There's a lot of these guys who, like as you said, James. There's some guys that we're not anticipating being on the team. Tristan Thompson, possibly Buddy Hield, possibly Marvin Bagley. But there's no guarantees. And if you get past the trade deadline, I'm not saying that Bagley. I still think you play Bagley because, again, as I keep saying, you're not good enough to throw away unproven talent. Play him. See what you got. Keep playing him. Get into the offseason. Even if he goes away, that's fine. Maybe there's a way you can get something for him. It doesn't matter. Like, you want to know. You want to just maybe confirm more what you believe, whatever. With Buddy, you'll play him a little bit, but at that point, you're probably going to sit him out, see what you have at Jemias, see what you have. And people I know will think, oh, tank. But it's like you've already tanked in a way because you're terrible when these guys play. So you could argue that playing the young guys almost gives you a better chance to win. I mean, just look at what happened last night. I mean, I never thought we were going to see a lineup of Davion Jones, Chimezie Metu, and Mo Harkless playing at the same time on this team, and they were impactful, James. They were impactful. So you're going to want to see Neemias Queta, and you're going to want to see, especially to me, Jemias Ramsey. I think there's a moment where, if anybody who deserves it, it's him. I want to know what we have him with him. I think there's still a little bit of a question mark. I haven't brought up
King. Yeah,
for sure. There's definitely Luke King, absolutely. So you're not far from it. But it's not. It doesn't mean that certain veterans cannot play. Like it's just why do you need to play at this point Rashawn Holmes 30 minutes a game? Now, granted, he only had 21 the other night against Brooklyn, but you won't need to. And so I think we're getting there. And I think, talking about the veterans, I know Rashawn has been bad. Rashawn also, if you don't move him, is still under contract for the next 3 years, right? 2 years, something like that. So
3 with I think the last year's a player option, but
yeah. But to me, I'd want him to get his confidence. Like, you don't want to just have him sit on the bench and sulk and go into an offseason. Like, no, man, get out there and get some confidence about you. Like, there is a fragility to an NBA team because, we talk about Ben Simmons ad nauseum. You don't want someone to get into a mental space to where he is, and even that might be an extreme. I think nobody would disagree that Rashawn Holmes is not is in a weird headspace right now. It's just not what you're used to seeing from him, and it's clearly bothered him. Now you couple in losing. The guy feels like he puts so much on himself, and he's probably thinking, God damn, if I was just a little bit better, we'd be freaking winning. And we talked to him the other night, James, where they're more than 11, they're like 11 games under 500 at that point, and he's just like, oh, I think we can still do. That's how athletes think. That's how these guys think. You want to save them from themselves, like I keep saying, and the trade deadline will hopefully be a moment to do that. But it's also just brace for it. Possibly nothing happens.
I totally agree. Okay, so this is it's such a weird thing to look at, but could we pick out 5 games that the Kings could have won this season? We can probably pick out more like 8 games that they could have won, right?
Could have. I'm glad you didn't say should have because I usually want to shaken baby syndrome those people.
Yeah. So we're looking at right now the Kings are 19-34. If you just won 5 more games, and we're talking about Detroit, we're talking about Houston, We're talking about you somehow like hit a shot in the Philadelphia game. Like there's enough games that we could look at where the Kings could have won. You're 24-29 and you're 5 games under 500. And you're right in the thick of everything. You're not just like you're not just a team that's looking at the 10 spot. You're a team that could actually climb over a few people, and that's where, again, if we're looking at this season in like what the Lakers are 25-27, you'd be the 10 spot, but you'd also have an opportunity to go do something. The reason I bring this up, Sean, is because I have this fear that because you brought it up again, that the 10 seed, like the Kings are 2.5 games out. Like this is our trade talk for the episode. That is the worst possible way to walk into the last 5 days or 7 days or whatever it is. Let's say the last 7 days before the trade deadline. Because if you're walking in with that thought process, then you can do something really stupid that could hurt you long term and really do damage to your team. And to me, like there are trades out there that are just sitting there waiting for the Kings to make that are bad trades, that are trades that you should be avoiding. Like we've already heard, like our friend Sam Amick went on the radio today. He said from what he's heard, the Kings are they've kicked the tires on Julius Randle. That's not happening. Ben Simmons isn't happening. John Collins isn't happening. All of those things are likely not going to happen. And that leaves you to like Jeremy Grant. And like we've talked about Jeremy Grant before, but Jeremy Grant for me is exactly what you do not do in this situation. You're a bad team. You're going to give up a first round pick at least at a minimum. Maybe you get away with just 1 first round pick and 2 young and 2 like a Marvin Bagley and a Tristan Thompson to match money, right? But the thing is that once you get Jeremy Grant, he wants $112 million on top of the $18 million he's already owed for a almost 28-year-old guy who basically is what we just talked about a few minutes ago when I said Lamont Murray. You said Jerry Reynolds talks about the player on every team that scores 20 points.
I give you Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, Jeremy Grant is a perfectly fine NBA player, and he's had some moments, and he's got some good defensive skills. He still, to me, isn't an upgrade over the type of player that Harrison Barnes is. Like, they're those players that you pay $20 million a year that are like the equivalent of what we used to call death by mid-level exemption, but they're players that hurt your ability to do something and to do something down the road. But now you're looking at Jeremy Grant will turn 28 later this season. So you're looking at 5 more years of Jeremy Grant, his 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33-year-old season. And you're going to pay him $20-something million a year. That's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money. And if you're giving up a first-round pick to do that, that is the move that I know will be lauded by some people. Oh, look at the great move they did. That's the move of a team that doesn't accept where they are in the standings, and you're better off losing and going into the top 5 than bringing on Jeremy Grant for $130 million over the next 5 years. Just my opinion.
I don't disagree. I mean, he's not a guy to me I'm breaking the bank for, and he's due an extension. It's nothing against him. I think he's a nice player. It's just I don't think he's the right player for Sacramento. And when you look at just some of the trade pieces coming up, I think fans, have to pretty much wrap their head around the fact that it's going to be the likes of Harrison Barnes as their most attractive trade piece right now for a lot of these teams looking to make a push. So I don't know that you're going to come away with all that much. Maybe it's a mid to late first round pick. Maybe, who knows, like down the road, probably not even in this draft, but it's probably something that could be down the road. So, it's going to be an interesting week, James. It really is. And as we head into the weekend, I got to be honest, I'm really surprised we haven't seen a move over the past couple weeks here. And it looks like it's all going to just come down to D-Day, which will be the 10th. And whether or not, it's when all the moves happen is typically at the deadline, on the day of the deadline. I was expecting so many moves, and so was the league, and everything just seems to be held up. And maybe this thing gets kicked to the draft, where maybe more movement happens in the draft. It's just a very odd season when it comes to movement.
It is. And I'm going to say this too. If the Kings were 24 and 29 and you're already the 10th spot and you had a potential to move up and you actually were playing better and you actually had a shot and you had a shot to go up to the 7th spot or the 6th spot, maybe I would consider Jeremy Grant and that long term. But the biggest issue is the Kings cores already showed us that they're not good enough. That doing a move like that just extends some misery, in my opinion. It extends what's happening.
And people should also just, I mean, beyond that, like, I know we kind of keep kicking the tires on the same ones you hear reports about, but open your mind. There's a lot of trades that happen that are not reported upon, in terms of there's discussions that happen where all of a sudden they make a move and you go, oh man, I didn't even hear anything about that one leading into it.
Yep.
It's like, that's how a lot of them. So a lot of the ones that it's almost the smoke screen, right? Like these aren't the droids you're looking for, James likes to say. It's like there's a reason these ones get leaked out and talked about so much, but there's also ones that are happening that haven't had that moment yet. And just go through rosters, look at people that you might want to target, and kind of think about certain things and how they might look in a Kings uniform and how they might make sense. I mean, there's so many possibilities that exist that never get reported on.
Yep. And I'll say this: if I can, I've said this move before. I've heard rumors of a potential swap. But if I could, if you were to trade Marvin Bagley for Robert Covington, first of all, I don't think that moves the needle on how your season ends, right? And he's a guy who's a unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. Good chance you lose him because he's a veteran who's going to go out and search for another job. Probably goes and links up with a championship quality team to add that depth, right? But I would still do something like that because to me, that gives me a player archetype that I can look and see, okay, how does he look with Harrison Barnes with this guard set? Or how does he look, to me, it's like a better version of Mo Harkless. Or how does he look with Mo Harkless if Harrison Barnes went somewhere else? So, look, I think there are moves that you can make. Go ahead.
No, sorry. They just did that last season. That's how Mo Harkless and Terrence Davis have contract extension. That's why they were re-signed. It's exactly the type of move because both of those guys probably wouldn't have been, they'd have been free agent.
Yeah. Even if you give it a couple of weeks and then you're like, okay, look, man, we're just going to let you go. And let you go sign somewhere else. You can go before, I think the March 1st deadline. Those are things where I think they actually do make sense. Even if you're not giving up anything that's long-term, if you're just swapping a contract or something. So, so I think that there's movement that can happen here where it's almost like placeholder stuff because you already know that this season is shot. What I don't want to see is do anything that impacts this season and your ability to move into the top 5 in the draft, because I think that has a higher likelihood of success than any of these medium-sized deals that you can do out in the general public. All right, Sean, we're going to get to the business of basketball. Yeah. I said that differently. Did business of basketball. There we go.
That was more purposeful. That was almost like telling it F you.
Yes. F you. Sean,
guy on Twitter.
Guy on Oh, that's funny. Okay, we're gonna do this relatively rapid fire. This time we're just gonna we're gonna see you again on Tuesday, barring a substantial trade over the weekend where Sean and I have to scramble and maybe we get together and we do an emergency pod. But chances are, well, let's just go through it. What's the percentage in your mind that Buddy Hield makes it to Tuesday and is still a Sacramento King?
Tuesday, 2 days before the trade deadline, I'm going to say 65%.
He's still a King.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good number. I like that number.
I mean, it's arbitrary, but I think he's still a King.
Yeah. No, but I think that I think that there's a good chance that he's moved by Thursday. But I also think that the Kings have to find someone to dance with. And I also believe, like, I'm going to guess that if there's one player that the Kings would bail on and take pennies on the dollar, it's Buddy. Like, where they're not taking back a contract that kills them, but they're also not really getting anything. That would be the one player that I think they would probably bite.
Okay. I'm writing some of these down because I'm going to say something at the end. Let's keep going.
Okay, Harrison Barnes. Is he a Sacramento King by Tuesday?
I think he is, but I feel like he's the King that's going to be most likely dealt.
Yeah, I think I believe that you're right. That I'm going to put that at 50-50 by Tuesday, but I'm going to even go higher than that, like 75-25 that he's no longer a King by Thursday.
He's a guy that I think the Kings know what the market is currently, and there's probably they just have to pick which deal is right for them. I feel like there's probably 3 or 4 options out there that they've identified, and they may have ruled all of them out for all I know, but I feel like they know a deal that they can pull the trigger on Thursday.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say that I think that they want to hold on to him until later in the process because they want to make sure that one of these stupid big deals don't come up and they can't be part of a big stupid 3-way
100%.
trade, and they need Harrison for that deal. So could they trade him this weekend? Yeah, I believe that he could be traded this weekend, but I also think he's a guy that probably you wait all the way up until the last because all of these things are going to shuffle quickly and it's going to get a little crazy. Let's go, Marv.
Yeah, he'll be here Tuesday. Thursday, I'm not so sure about, but he'll be here Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, and I'm going to say he'll be here
just because I feel he's such an ancillary piece at this point in terms of nobody's jumping out to trade for Marvin. Obviously, the last year has shown you that. Because again, if you have any curiosity about Marvin Bagley, just go sign him.
Yeah,
it's not going to cost you a whole lot, so just go sign him.
Yeah, I looked. He needs to get to, I think it's 41 starts. He's at 17 starts, so he needs 24 starts. He's not playing tonight, and after tonight, there's only 28 games. So the chance of of him reaching the starter criteria is almost nil. Like any team could sit him 4 games and he wouldn't make this, and he might not even make it back in time. And that would be the other reason why I think he probably doesn't go between now and Tuesday, but more likely between now and Thursday, because he's not probably going to play because he has a sprained ankle. And then, maybe I heard that it's not that bad and that he could be back relatively quick. He was on the court shooting with Doug.
He wasn't moving very well.
He wasn't. Actually, all of his shots were set shots. I don't know.
Oh, they were terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. They were all with both feet on the ground with him going up on his toes and extending and shooting. Okay. So, we'll hit the big one. Is De'Aaron Fox a Sacramento King by Tuesday?
Yes.
Is he by Thursday?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think that there's going to be some huge move. And if he's a part of a move, it's going to be a huge move. So I think De'Aaron Fox finishes the season out.
Okay. Yeah, I would put it like 80-20. Maybe a little higher than that he's a Sacramento King by Thursday. Mm-hmm. I don't think anything will happen with him over the next couple of days. Again, I think if you do move him, it is in some gigantic blockbuster that happens that gets pieced together in like the last 24 hours of the deadline. What did you have to add?
Well, I think in terms of just the most, I think, well, maybe that was probably a bad tease, but I feel like we identified Harrison as being the most attractive piece, right? But if you're looking at it, I still think Buddy does hold a very big value, and I can see a pathway for Thursday, but I could also see him still being here by the draft. And I think there's enough you kind of saw market value right there with the Lakers, right? You kind of saw some pieces and say, oh man, if I almost had Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell for Buddy, what does that look like beyond? What does that look like with other scenarios out there? And even though he's not the right piece for your team at this moment, based on how you are, and you're asking him to play a role that he's not, I feel like you can, just because he gets through the trade deadline, if he does, that doesn't mean he's going to still, be here long term. So I still feel like they'd still try to move him, but now all of a sudden your focus comes to the draft and the offseason, and I think there's still a pathway for Buddy out of there. So I don't necessarily feel that, even for Marvin, that if you don't get dealt by the deadline, all of a sudden the team is in love with you. There's still options to try to move you, but there's no gun to their head.
No, if it comes to Marvin, I mean, you're taking a second-round pick. If it comes to Tristan, you're taking a second-round pick. If a big deal doesn't develop where you need them as cap filler, I think you deal with them, even if it's switching them out for other pieces, like a Covington deal, like where you're going to just get a player that you just have some interest in kicking the tires on. I think that, again, the most likely piece to get moved is Harrison. That's he's only got 1 year left on his contract after this year. He still has tremendous value. I think you can still get a first-round pick for him. I think you can get a young player and a first-round pick for him. I think Richaun Holmes, you can get a young player, and I think you can get a first-round pick out of him, probably in the late teens or early 20s. But I still think you can get a good pick for Richaun Holmes, because his contract is so team-friendly. We didn't even talk about him.
Didn't even talk about him. Yeah. I think he's a very intriguing name. I brought him up on Tuesday, and it's mainly because he has a very attractive contract.
Yep.
You have control of him. I think people know what he looks like when he's right, and I think there'd be some people that would be interested in him. I just don't know what you can really. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what you're getting. I don't know anything out there yet, but I do think that I think he's intriguing. I know there's a lot of people that have tried to look at Golden State and said, oh, he could definitely help Golden State, and maybe they would trade Wiseman. That ain't happening.
Yeah,
Joe Lacob, I was talking to folks last night, and even today, Joe Lacob loves, with a capital L, probably capital OVES too. He loves James Wiseman. What
about Kuminga or Moody?
I don't think they would do that, because I feel like, James, this team's in second place, and they haven't even had Klay Thompson. Why move? Why would you do that?
Because you have an opportunity to win a championship,
and they could still do it anyway.
No, they could, but yeah. I still think the versatility, like we've heard the Kings attached to the Utah Jazz, when it came to Harrison Barnes, and getting
even before the Ingles injury.
Yeah. So I think that they're going to have a really difficult time, a very difficult time getting Harrison Barnes from the Kings at this point. But like the way that Hassan Whiteside has kind of fallen apart there, the way that that in the playoffs they struggle to defend the perimeter with Rudy Gobert, I still think that would be an absolutely brilliant move for them. Especially you got Jingles, like would you take Jingles' expiring contract and for Richaun Holmes in a first? I mean, would you take Jingles' expiring contract and a first for Richaun Holmes? And I think if you're the Kings, it's $10 million off your books. You'd have to at least think about it. Maybe they've got someone hiding there that is young.
I mean, that's such a low first-round pick, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a great first-round pick, but that team has lost a bunch of games.
Yeah.
You're looking at a team that isn't the cream of the crop that they were earlier in the season. What are they? As of right now, they're the 4th seed, and they're 31-21 at 596. So you're looking at right around 20. They're tied with the Cleveland Cavaliers at 31-21. So you're literally looking at like a 20-21.
It'd be very sour for Kings fans not to have somebody of caliber, you know what I mean, that can go out there and play. Like if you're getting you're trading for a dude that literally is just your expiring contract. He's not playing. He's torn his ACL. and here's your pick. Like, oh, that's disappointing. But
I would
is what it
prefer
is. It's
like
a pretty.
like PJ Washington. If you could get
Oh,
PJ
I love
Washington.
PJ Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could get that, I mean, they need a starting level center still. They need some help there, and I think Rashawn Holmes would fit perfectly with Ball. And to me, that's a team that has potential to move up, especially with Brooklyn stumbling, especially with the fact that I don't think anyone believes that the Cavs are going to be able to hold on and be that good all the way down the stretch once, real playoff basketball starts. But that's a guy that I think would make a ton of sense there. He's a long-term fit for there. They liked him before. He's an upgrade over Mason Plumlee, in my opinion. And I think a guy like P.J. Washington, who's young and you're going to have to eventually pay, and who plays at stretch 4, which the Kings desperately need long-term, that's something I would consider. Mm-hmm. Now, whether you can get that or not, that's a whole other question. All right.
Tough.
Sean, do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. I actually think the Kings are going to win tonight. Is that weird?
That's weird.
I think they're going to beat the Warriors. I think it's just, I don't know, man. This season is so strange that like I could see it. I could see it. It'd be so strange. And I don't know what
Ross
it is.
Predicted last night's win. I think Jason Ross predicted that one.
Did he? Well, I mean, it's just so. I always remember. Now, granted, Klay Thompson, he hasn't played against the Kings in 2 years, but he lights up the Kings. But Steph never doesn't really have those like huge breakout games. Like he's had kind of the Warriors for some reason just don't ever really play great against the Kings, and they just keep them in it. I go back to that game earlier this season in San Francisco, and it was. They pulled away late, obviously, but Kings were in that game, and I kept saying, "How are the Kings in this game?" Funny things happen when the Kings and the Warriors meet up. So maybe this is a game.
We got Nemanja Bjelica, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, Otto Porter, James Wiseman are all out. We still don't have an update on De'Aaron Fox, but of course Terrence Davis is out for. We're just going to say he's out for the season after having ECU tendon recovery surgery on his ECU tendon surgery on his right shooting hand, which is even worse. Marvin Bagley is out with a sprained ankle. So we're going to see a very similar team to what we saw from the Kings last night. Most likely, I don't see De'Aaron Fox playing. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think questionable is more like doubtful or just flat out, and they just aren't. They're leaving the door open every game for him to play. Outside of that, let's see. Make sure that you're giving us a thumbs up. Make sure that you're subscribing to the Kings Beat. Down below, you can find links to Sean and I's Twitter handle, Instagram, Facebook page, all that stuff. So if you have time, just go ahead and click on those things. Go to the Kings Beat. There's also a subscription down in the description below us. A link to the subscription and a link to a premium subscription right down below in the box. So
keep scrolling.
Yeah, keep scrolling. We put all kinds of things in there. So give us a thumbs up. Make sure that you're following us wherever you get your content. And if you're listening on iTunes, go in, give us a rating and a review, and subscribe and all that stuff. We will be back on Tuesday, barring an emergency pod over the weekend. If there's a major trade, we'll have things coming up like the happy hour, which is going to be a hoot.
Cannot wait.
Sean is excited. We're going to have things like merch.
Oh, my God. We got merch.
We got merch.
I got my hoodie yesterday, came to my media seat, and it was sitting there, and I thought, oh, James, you couldn't even bring it to me like in the media room. I had to. It was literally a stumble upon surprise, and I'm surprised no one ganked it from the seat.
I was hoping that you would be surprised because, like, how many more surprises could we have? We have a sweatshirt in your seat, and then Coolio at halftime, and then
who said that he's undefeated when he performs for the home team at halftime. I got to hear that little exchange with Steve Nash. I also got to interview Coolio, which was kind of fun. He did some cool stuff before the game and met with some local groups and nonprofits and had some pretty fun discussions. And he's a interesting dude, man. I liked it. I'm going to share that interview probably later tonight. It's pretty fun, man.
And Sean, God bless the guy who sang the national anthem.
Jesus Christ, bro. Come on.
God bless the national anthem singer.
It took everything. I mean, it took probably half the quarter for us to settle down from that. And I've got video. I didn't share it, but there were some players that you remember that Draymond Green when Fergie's doing the national anthem at the and he's like trying not to laugh. There were some dudes that had their heads down and just grinning. And actually, I'll say this one because everyone saw him. Chimezie Metu was not. He didn't give a damn if anyone saw him. He was just like eyes way. He's doing this, tapping his watch. Like he wasn't saying Dame time. He was saying, "Let's get this show going." My guy trying to sing this anthem.
I don't know what happened there.
God bless him. I mean,
God bless him. Yeah, that's a hard thing to do, but you probably shouldn't have watched the Carl Lewis version and tried to match that one because that was.
Where was Mo Cheeks when you needed him? Could have helped the guy through it. You know? Stay on rhythm here. Let's.
Yeah.
Oh, good God, that was bad. Sorry. I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast.
Sorry, bro. I don't know what happened there. It'd be like that sometimes, Sean.
Sure does.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the King's Beat podcast. For ABC 10's Sean Cunningham, I am James Ham. We'll see you very soon.